You know that blood sugar, even if you don't have diabetes, can directly impact your skin, inflammation, and how fast you heal. For people with hidradenitis suppurativa, this connection can make a huge difference. In the next few minutes, I'll explain how blood sugar affects inflammation, why sugar matters for HS and wound healing, and what small steps you can take right now. Hi, I'm Christina. I'm a nutritionist and HS warrior and patient advocate. And I've been working with the chronic illness community for 10 years, and I specialize in helping HS warriors improve their quality of life and manage their symptoms through nutritional interventions. So let's get into it. If you're living with HS, you already know this condition is deeply inflammatory. But what many people don't realize is that unstable blood sugar can silently fuel that fire, even if you're not diabetic. I would say food doesn't cause HS, but it can definitely help it, right? And so, in the way that food or our nutrition interacts with our inflammatory responses in our body is really unique. But the blood sugar regulation piece is something that's huge among the HS community, especially with studies showing that about 50% of us do, in fact, have diagnosed metabolic disorders, right? It's not just about cutting out sugar, it's about balancing our system to calm inflammation, support healing, and even reduce the risk of yeast overgrowth like candida, which I go into a whole candida video, like the topic, in 2 videos, which are on here on YouTube as well as a full blog post on nutritionforhidradenitis.suppurativa.com. I'm not going to expand on candida in this video, but that is worth the read and learning more about. Let's explain the science simply. Blood sugar and inflammation. When blood sugar spikes, the body increases insulin as a response. The excess insulin increases inflammatory markers, right? And chronic spikes can worsen inflammation and inflammatory diseases like HS. And here's a visual of how those chronic spikes happen. This is from my cookbook, Made Whole, Made Simple. And this is, so essentially, let's say you eat an unbalanced meal, something that's just, you have a bowl of cereal here, because again, most cereals are just going to be like a lot of sugar. The only protein you're getting is from the milk if you're doing like cow milk. It spikes, high blood sugar, a little adrenal and like a pancreas. And so the blood sugar spikes. And then, of course, you secrete like a lot of insulin because your body's like, oh my God, we need to bring this blood sugar down. But sometimes the body overreacts and then it dips. And then you're like, that's when you get that like shaky, hangry, I'm running to Starbucks because I need a mocha frappuccino, which is going to be not just the caffeine, but another sugar bomb. Then it spikes again and your battery feels like full again. And you're like, whoa, energy, right? But it's, again, your body's overreacting because when you have that quick spike and then that battery quickly empties, because like simple carbohydrate, sugar, that's like kindling to a fire. Quick to your bloodstream and quick out. Your body's going to use it quickly. And then you're hangry again and you go in for a meal, and then you're going to kind of over and over and over and over and over forever it goes, right? Usually what you want is to be kind of like here. Yes, your blood sugar is going to go up and down, but you want it to be more like rolling waves versus peaks and lows, if that makes sense. All right. Remember, chronic spikes worsen inflammatory symptoms and worsen hidradenitis suppurativa symptoms. It's not about not eating carbs. You can definitely continue to have carbohydrates in your diet, but it's about having balanced meals. Sugar and wound healing. High blood sugar impairs immune function and it slows tissue repair and makes wounds more prone to infection, right? This is something that people ask me all the time when I'm in a crisis. If you're in a flare, what to do? And I'm always like, cut out sugar. Cut out sugar. If you're fruit juice, refined carbohydrates, candy, things like that, again, they're really going to impair wound healing. And so for HS, this means that flares heal more slowly, and then there's an increased risk of scarring. Reducing the sugar intake, and I will say that something that a lot of people experience when they do the like sugar-free, dairy-free, which is what I recommend for a crisis like flare management, is that especially if they do it over time, not only do their flares have less odor to them, but they're less painful, which is really interesting. Blood sugar and candida. Excess sugar feeds yeast in the body, and then there's a higher risk of candida overgrowth in the HS community. And a lot of this has to do with a lot of us being on a ton of antibiotics. So the overuse of antibiotics has been shown to increase candida overgrowth because essentially it leaves us with an imbalance of beneficial and opportunistic bacteria, and that allows the candida to kind of go wild. And candida overgrowth drives inflammation, itching, and skin irritation. So that sugar is also going to feed the candida, which is another reason why omitting sugar or lowering sugar intake is really beneficial for HS patients. Think of your body like a fire, right? Sugar is a fuel. Insulin is the spark, and inflammation is the smoke. If you keep the fuel steady, the fire stays under control. But if you pour a ton of it, right? Sugar is like gasoline. If you're pouring, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to that spark? It's going to turn into this massive like bonfire, and then you're going to have all this smoke. You have to keep it steady. And so one of the best ways to do this is balanced meals, is making sure you're pairing your carbohydrates with protein, with fat, and with fiber, right? And not all carbs have fiber. A lot of them do, but not all of them. Either you want to pick carbohydrates that have a higher fiber content, think brown rice and beans, or fruit, or a lot of vegetables again, and all sorts of different types of vegetables have a lot of fiber. I'm a big fan of pairing. You can have your rice, you can have your potato, you can have the bread, but pair it with a fibrous vegetable, cruciferous vegetables, leafy greens, broccoli, whatnot, right? Asparagus, green beans, any of that. And you want to also eat your protein and your greens first, because when you're eating, or at least most of it, you don't have to like all of it. I like having a little bite of everything in my plate too. But if you want to make sure that you're getting through at least half of your protein and greens before you go into your carbohydrates, and that's going to also blunt that blood sugar response. Reduce added sugars in meals. And so it is kind of nuts. I don't know if you've ever heard of Whole30, but it's kind of this reset that omits all added sugars. And the first time I did this, it was wild how much added sugar is in the average American diet. Like it's in sauces, it's in seasonings, it's in so many beverages. Look at your beverages. Is there added sugar there? It's not that you have no sugar, but again, swap for sweet drinks for unsweetened drinks. Watch for the added sugar in your sauces, your condiments, your seasonings, all that. It really adds up. Simple way to cut out on sugar that you don't even know you're eating. Support gut health. So adding in fermented foods. Again, this is something I think a lot of Americans aren't great about, but adding in whether it's kimchi or yogurt or sauerkraut or actually like fermented pickles and things like that. I love pickled vegetables. Adding in fermented, I like Bubby's brand. They're really good, but adding in fermented foods into your diet is going to really help with your balance, that microbiome. And that's going to, again, help quell the candida and other things, because especially if you've been on a lot of antibiotics, you kind of have to replenish that beneficial bacteria in your gut. Antifungal herbs if needed. This is something which I think a lot of people don't realize, but I just saw a comment today on Instagram of someone saying that they started drinking this tea that has clove and ginger and lemon every day, and they feel so much better. And a lot of times we don't realize that even just things that we eat every day, garlic is antifungal, oregano is antifungal, apple cider vinegar. Adding things into your diet and onto your plate versus omitting. Like right now, I have my hot toddy. I've been talking about this a lot on social media. If you guys aren't aware of my favorite tea here, it's got a bunch of like antimicrobial, antifungal things, and I just drink it because I like it. It tastes good, but it's lemon, apple cider vinegar, cloves, cinnamon, all these things which are good for blood sugar regulation and whatnot. And I thoroughly enjoy this. Adding things in which you enjoy, which have these benefits, which for me is a win-win. Monitor your blood sugar. Optional tip, you can get a continuous glucose monitor. This I know some people get this is not the same as an insulin pump. Continuous glucose monitors are like a little thing. If you do have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, your insurance will cover it. Your doctor can prescribe it. There are apps, and I forgot what it's called, but there's places you can pay for out of pocket that can be expensive, or just the finger prick you can get at the pharmacy and do the little blood test. That's only if you really, really suspect that you have some major blood sugar dysregulation. This is an added expense I don't think most people need, but some of my clients, it's something that I do recommend because they're at the point where they really need to be knowing how they're responding to every meal. All right, remember though, and this is the big one, you don't need to go low carb or keto unless you really have to, right? Just steady, balanced eating can make a big difference. Some people feel really good on really low carb and keto. I did for many years, and right now I'm kind of in a keto phase again in my life, but I was eating carbs for many years and continue to stay in remission. I think that there's that misconception that eating to balance your blood sugar immediately means low carb keto. No, you can have your beans, your rice, your potatoes, whatnot. You can have a balanced diet. And metabolic flexibility is always the goal, where you can, let's say, skip a meal if you have to and it's not going to make you hangry, but you can also eat like potatoes if you want. And I'm fortunate to be in that place right now. If I had a banana this morning in my smoothie, but then I don't know, I can eat carbs when I want, no big deal. And remember, this isn't about perfection or harsh restrictions. It's about learning how your body responds and making choices that lower your inflammatory load, right? Lowering your inflammatory load is the goal. Playing around with the way that you build your plate and the order in which you eat your food, playing around with adding things in like fiber and fat and protein to see how you feel. If you've been frustrated by slow healing flares or frequent infections, stabilizing blood sugar might be the missing piece of your puzzle. And I really, really am passionate about this. I've worked with so many clients who come to me, they're on Remicade, they're on Humira, they've been on a lot of different treatment plans, they've done elimination diets, and they're not seeing the results that they want. And it's just about that blood sugar regulation piece, because you can be eating a clean diet, and it is clean, it's whole unprocessed foods, but if you're not regulating your blood sugar and that is a piece of your puzzle, you need to address it. Drop a comment below if you've noticed a connection between sugar and your HS symptoms. I'd love to hear your experience. And if you want to read more about this and you're like a reader learner, I have a full write-up on my blog, nutritionforhidradenitis where you can get it in writing. And again, I've got like 2 whole food anti-inflammatory cookbooks at your disposal. And this one does have a lot of information about blood sugar regulation and metabolic adaptability and flexibility in the front. There's a whole section on where we get our fuel. You see the little gas station with the bacon, the steak, and the sweet potato. And it does go into, again, like how insulin works and all that jazz. This is available on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. I have tons of resources to help you on your HS journey. And I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.